Hey everybody, my name is Louise and welcome to the Wildflower Wool Knitting Podcast. It is a brand new week and I hope your week has been going fantastic. I've got lots of knitting to show you. I've got two small projects to show you, which I guess and to me seems like a lot of knitting. Let me jump right in. The first project I'm going to show you is something that was totally unexpected. It wasn't a planned project at all. I was just totally in the mood. I'm making a mess back here. I was really in the mood just for quick knits, some soft, squishy yarn, thick yarn that would knit up quick. And so I knit up this cowl. This yarn is still leftovers from those two Karen anniversary cakes that I had purchased and I knit sweaters out of. This one here, this is the white with, it's got a little bit of black fleck in it, which was the gray, shades of gray sweater. The grays, the charcoal, and the white. And I had a couple of balls left over. Just enough. I do have a little bit left over here. Not really too much. It'll go into a scrappy project because I'm bound and bent. I'm going to get all of this yarn used up from these two balls. So I don't know. I just wanted something quick and easy to knit this past weekend. So garter stitch, I knit it flat. Can you see where my seam is here? I did mattress stitch in the garter stitch, and I think it seamed up nice. And I just kind of did my gauge to garment. I can't even tell you exactly how many stitches I used. I will, if you're curious, I'll leave the stitch count in the comments. I used a 7mm needle, I'm pretty sure. This is a number 6 yarn that's super chunky, super bulky. And I just cast on somewhere between 68, something like that, something like 68 stitches. And I used the same size needle for the whole project. I didn't use a smaller needle for the ribbing. And I did a knit 1, purl 1 ribbing. So my cast on number had to be a multiple of 2 for the knit 1, purl 1. So the repeat would work out. I didn't worry just for this little bit. You can always add, if you know you're going to seam when you're doing ribbing, it's always good to add 1 extra stitch because that extra stitch will go into the seam and it will make your ribbing still look seamless. Mine is not bad. And I was fine with that. Anyways, I did an even number of stitches. I did knit 1, purl 1 for that much. I don't even think I measured it. I just kind of eyeballed it, which ended up being my cast on row. My cast on row, I did the long tail cast on. So the cast on row gives you this kind of rope edge here, plus that first stitch. So that was my cast on. When I'm covering right there, that was my cast on. And then I knit 1, 2, 3, 4 more rows. I think so. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 4, 5. I think that last row was kind of hidden there. I think I did about 5 rows. I cast on, did 5 rows, and then I just went all into garter stitch, which one, of course, when you're knitting flat, that was just knit every row. And do I have a tape measure? I'm really not very organized here. I think this was only about 8 inches. My plan for this cowl was I wanted it to be very snug around the neck. This was totally going for warmth. This was like if you're walking the dog, you're walking to the mailbox, it's cold and windy. I'll show you. So I know it was 19 inches long. So my circumference around was 19 and a half inches, I think it was. And I'm pretty sure I did 8 inches here. And this is what I ended up with. And I like it. I don't think I wouldn't go any tighter, any snugger. but this is nice because it just fits under my chin. I could easily pull it up if I needed to. And there's just enough bulk that it kind of scrunches down just to kind of give some extra warmth here. And that's that. So this was a keeper. I really liked this project. And I will probably just write this pattern up again because I know I just kind of rambled it off to you. But it was easy. And then just mattress stitched it up the back. I thought that was easier because some of you may be saying, well, Louise, why didn't you knit it in the round? Because everybody likes to knit in the round because then you don't have to seam. If I had done it in the round, I would not have had to seam, but if I wanted my squishy garter stitch that I was really craving, I would have had to knit around and purl around, which I very easily could have done, but I just felt like all knitting. And I don't feel like seaming up this little bit of a seam is anything too hard. And seaming up in garter stitch is super, super easy. You just catch a loop on either side. And what I did, let's take a peek here at the garter stitch really quick. So when you're looking at garter stitch, is that focusing? You can see there is a loop up top and a loop on the bottom. One ridge of garter stitch for any of you newer knitters out there. You can see all those ridges of garter stitch. So one ridge equals 2 rows of knitting. So you can count your rows by counting the top bump and the bottom bump. And then down here, there'll be a top and a bottom, a top and a bottom, a top and a bottom. So the trick to seaming up garter stitch in mattress stitch, you have the right side facing you, you've got your tail of yarn on a darning needle, and you pick either the top bump or the bottom bump, and you stick with that. So I went with the bottom. So I picked up a bottom on one side, and I picked up a bottom straight across on the other piece of fabric, scooped them both up and pulled it tight. Went up a row, picked up the bottom bump, moved over, picked up the bottom bump. And it gives you a pretty close to seamless seam. And that's all there is to it. And plus, I like knitting flat as opposed to scrunching your stitches up. I have fuzz. On a circular needle, because then you can stretch out your stitches and you can see exactly what your width is. So I had cast on, I don't know, I'm guessing 68 stitches, something like that. I had a longer needle, like a 36-inch needle, and so I had my stitches and I could see exactly. Because we all know gauge can be tricky, even though sometimes we do measure gauge, we think we're on track. Sometimes our tension changes during the project and we end up with something a little shorter or bigger, smaller, shorter, longer than we were hoping for. Anyways, so that's another reason. If you're knitting on a straight needle or if you're knitting magic loop, you can stretch your project out and you can get an accurate measurement of it as you're going along. So that was that. That was project number 1 that I did last weekend. And I really like it, and I'm going to knit more of them because it was, and I did this in a day. I cast it on in the afternoon and I finished it at night. Yeah, like it was only, actually I timed it. Okay, maybe I did, maybe that's not right. Anyways, I may be getting my cowls mixed up, but I know for 100% sure this took me 5 hours to knit. I still have fuzz stuck in my lipstick. Anyways, quick project. It was just under 100 grams. I think it was about 89 grams of yarn that I used. I weighed it because I have all of these little part balls left over. I used this yarn. So like I said before, this was from the yellow sweater and the gray black sweater. That was those huge Karen Cake anniversary balls. So I have all of these little bits. And I did last week's cowl out of this leftover yarn. That was the dip stitch. It looks upside down. It goes like this. This was leftovers. This cowl was leftovers. And I still have all these balls. So I was kind of getting an idea of how much yarn I had used. This was about 126 grams. It's more because remember I did this one a lot bigger. So it's a lot, it's not as snug around the neck. This was, I think, 126 grams, and this was 89 grams. So one's just under, one's just over 100 gram ball. I have all these part balls left. So I cast on another cowl. This was my little swatch. Not sure where my swatch went. My swatch from last week's video, the tuck stitch. Remember I had done, oh wait, I think I see it. Hold on. This one right here. It was sitting on my desk. So remember I said how I really liked these color combinations, the gray and this kind of beigey yellow. And I thought I would really like to do a cowl in this. Well, I was hoping to do a cowl in it until I spread out all my part balls and I don't have enough of the gray. I only have, yeah, that's darker. I only had this little bit of the light gray because I had used it in the dip stitch cowl. So anyways, this was a good thought, but it wasn't going to happen. So I went to plan B, looked at all these part balls that I had on my desk, and this is what I picked. I picked this dark brown, and this was also in the same large Caron Cake anniversary ball, and it's white with just little bits of flecks of the same shade of brown. And I thought that would look really good in the tuck stitch pattern. So this is it. It's not off the needles. I was really hoping I would have it cast off to show you, but I'm literally 2 rows and a cast off row away from getting it finished. But here it is. Look at that. I love this. Somebody left me a comment last week saying that it's also called the bubble stitch, which obviously is a perfect name for this because it gives you bubbles. So anyways, that is that. I've got 3 rows left and it will be done. Okay, sorry, I had a phone call in there. The bubble stitch, super fun, aptly named, bubble or tuck stitch, however you want to call it. It is great. It is fun. So I've got 3 rows. I just have, 2.5 rows. I have my first row. Okay. Oh, look, this is a good way to show you this. So I've done my first row of brown. I've worked my brown and I've worked my tuck stitch. I'm on the second half of, I still have fuzz. I'm on the second row. So on this side, I'm ready to do my tuck stitch. And you can see I still have my solid stripe of white. So next up, I'm going to bring around the brown that I'm working on, and I'm going to knit 3 stitches, drop down the 4th so I can pick up that first loop of brown and then work it back up. And then I will have 1 round of the brown done. I will finish off with 1 more round of the brown, cast off in the brown, and I think I'm just going to do a regular cast off. I will cast off purlwise though, because I always like to cast off the opposite stitch that I'm doing. So if I have the right side facing me, which is normally a knit side, I will cast off purlwise. If I'm knitting flat and I have the purl side facing me, I will cast off knitwise because I think it just gives it a little nicer edge, and that solid chain stitch flips it to the inside. So it's looks like, I think it gives it a nicer edge, and it looks a little more like it matches the cast on edge. And that is that. That's what I've worked on this week. It has been super fun, relaxing, quick, simple, easy, and I love this stitch. Now, I thought I was going to continue on with some smaller, simple knits. I had kind of was still playing around with what I wanted my theme or my focus to be for this year, 2021. And I thought I had wanted it to be more of this, something that I could start and finish within a week. But you know what? The call of sweater knitting is getting me. And I have the biggest urge to do my gauge to garment process again and do a really lightweight, like a fingering weight pullover with something. I'm envisioning a boat neck. So that's not a simple project, not something I'm going to get done in a week, but I'm kind of thinking I might cast it on. So maybe I will just kind of go with the flow. I'm just going to go with what makes me happy. And I think a sweater is going to be in the works for this week. So join me next week and you'll see what I cast on. Of course, you can always follow me over on Instagram and you'll see what I'm working on through the week until we are back here for another podcast. Asa, my friend Asa, also posted on the Fiber Friends Facebook group. She started me a countdown for all of my works in progress, all of my new starts that I did last year. She is now insisting that this is the year that I finish them. So I think I'm at, I don't know what, 347 or 45 days now or something to get all those new starts finished that I cast on last year. I don't know. I'm not holding out any hope that they'll all get finished, but we will see. Maybe I'll get a few of them done. Anyways, everybody, I would love to chat with you in the comments. You can leave me some comments on what you are working on. Is anybody else getting that urge to cast on a sweater, or are you currently working on one? I would love to know. So let's chat in the comments. And if you're starting something or if you're working on a sweater, post it on Instagram and tag me at Wildflower Wool. And then I can, I don't know, I can see what you're working on for sweaters, because I feel like this week is definitely going to be a sweater knitting week. All right, everybody, thanks for hanging out and checking back in on how my knitting had gone this week, and I will talk to you next week. Bye.